And maybe you can kind of help us walk through some of those countries that are really at that tipping point now. And as long-term investors, what might be interesting places for us to look for quality companies to invest in?
And this is such an exciting story, Brian, because China, let's remember on the demographics, represents only 1/3 of Asia's population. I mean, here's yet another reason not to view China synonymous with Asia. There are 3.5 billion, with a B, Asians who are not Chinese, right? And the median age of almost all of those countries, with the exception of Japan and Korea, obviously, is younger than China's median age, right? And so in particular, what I focus on is the fourth wave of Asian growth. The first wave was Japan, the second wave was the Tigers, the third wave was China itself, and now the fourth wave. And the fourth wave is very exciting because you have this contiguous set of countries from Pakistan through India and Bangladesh, so South Asia, and then all of Southeast Asia. A combined population of 2.5 billion, every one of those countries having a younger median age than China, with the exception of Thailand, which is almost the same. And you had, prior to the pandemic, very high growth rates, in many of these cases, higher growth rates than China. ASEAN, just the sub-region of ASEAN, is really worth talking about. It has half the population of India, that's 700 million people, GDP larger than India. Half the population of China, with more greenfield foreign investment coming in than China. Really remarkable. And that's where we stood in 2019. Now, the pandemic has obviously led to a bit of a reset in some of these areas, but that's also offset by new dynamics around trade agreements and tensions with China and supply chain shifting. So I'm very bullish on the places like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, India as well, and so forth.
Yeah. And I mean, you touch on in the book, I think, as well, that foreign direct investment basically into Asia, 50% of that already is coming from within Asia.
Right.
I mean, maybe you can just chat through the pace at which that is accelerating. And I mean, what will it look like 5 or 10 years from now?
Right. This is critical. A lot of people who have underestimated Asia's rise in general and emerging, or what I call ascending Asia in particular, have looked at the low rates of cross-border trade and investment as an indicator that the region had not yet matured. And indeed, because it was a statistical anomaly in a way, because when a country or when a region is the kind of factory floor of the world, its external trade is going to be much higher than its internal trade. And when its per capita incomes are low, you're going to have less trade integration. So those two facts made it seem that Southeast Asians and India, were not well connected to each other. But that has switched really fast because growth rates have been accelerating, wealth creation has been enormous, trade agreements have been signed, supply chains are shifting. When all of those things happen within a span of a few years, boom, you get this, and now we have the latest data, the rate of internal trade and investment, as you were alluding to earlier, have really shot up. And this is a sign of maturity in this region. So again, at the height of this pandemic, a year ago, you had Asian countries sign the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, the largest trade agreement by GDP and demographics in the world, obviously by far. That's a sign of maturity. And what I've tracked in some of my kind of research, going back to the previous crises, 98 Asian financial crisis, the GFC of 2008, now the pandemic, each time Asian countries learn to reform faster, lean on each other more readily, to liberalize and bring down their borders around capital controls and investment flows more quickly. So that's a sign of maturity too. So I think you see those things happening now with the pandemic. RCEP is one metric in that direction. So again, overall, the learning effects are key to reinforcing that progress.